Well, hi everyone, and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today we celebrate the birthday of Depeche Mode co-founder Andy Fletcher, sometimes known as Fletch. There's a personal connection there, but we'll get to that maybe on another video. But Depeche Mode were truly revolutionaries, and Andy Fletcher, as a co-founder, was an incredibly central part of that Depeche Mode sound that evolved as technology changed, but always remained true to its principles of being synthesizer driven, danceable, deeply introspective, and at times very dark, but often with a very spiritual angle. And in doing that, they created something that defied a lot of perceptions of synthesizer based music, whether you want to call it electronic rock or whether you want to call it synth pop. There are a lot of various names that have been assigned to that genre, but it's unmistakable in its sound. Now, what are some of these preconceptions or stereotypes that Depeche Mode really shattered? Well, one of them is that this kind of music needs to be very mechanical and inhuman. Not unhuman, but inhuman in the sense that it's just something apart. It's almost robotic music. And this was something that a pioneer in this genre, Kraftwerk out of Germany, really pushed to the utmost extent. Their whole idea was almost transcending the idea that it was humans behind the music. For Kraftwerk, it was really about the union of man and machine, where the listener wasn't quite sure where one began and one ended. And Tangerine Dream, you could maybe also put into that category. Now, Depeche Mode did something very different, although the influence of German bands, particularly Kraftwerk, was very present at all times. What Depeche Mode did was take classic themes of teenaged angst, of conflict between men and women at an emotional level, about love, about loss, about relations, about very heavy subjects like death and the various roads one can take to go there intentionally or unintentionally. Very heavy subjects, very dark subjects at times, but very human subjects. Depeche Mode was all about the human condition. And they conveyed this through two means. One, through the lyrics, which quite explicitly covered the topics that I just mentioned. And the second is through the music itself, through synthesizers that were used to create unmistakable, very memorable riffs that could have just as easily been played on a guitar or a piano or a Hammond organ or things that were more familiar in terms of the sonic palette by the time the early 80s came around. But they decided to use the most futuristic sounding synthesizers possible, albeit not at the beginning, at least, the most expensive ones. By the late 70s and particularly in the early 80s, the kinds of synthesizers that you needed a kind of Keith Emerson or Stevie Wonder budget to really afford, they were becoming more affordable. And therefore, synthesizer based music was becoming more democratized. The other thing that happened at this era was sequencers and drum machines made it so that you didn't need as big a rehearsal space as a traditional rock band where a big drum set would wake up the neighbors, to quote Bryan Adams, a musician that had nothing at all to do with Depeche Mode. And so this more compact sound was really in many ways a primogenitor to the kinds of things we have today, where someone with a laptop and a little keyboard can create very large sounds, enough to entertain a mass audience. And albeit the technology was still a lot bulkier and heavier when Depeche Mode got into it, there was something instinctively democratic about their approach to synthesizer based music, which really meshed nicely with the human angles that they tackled in terms of their lyrical themes. The other thing that really helped them make the big time was that the music was catchy. A lot of the Kraftwerk stuff, while it had some memorable riffs, some of it just went on for so long that unless you were at a dance club or unless you were willing to sit back in a darkened, shuttered room, if you will, and listen to it beginning through end, it wasn't necessarily the most accessible music. Where Depeche Mode were first and foremost a singles band. That's not to say that their albums weren't very cohesive and very good. They very much were. But it was the idea that we're going to capture all of this emotional energy, all of this rhythmic energy, all of these interesting sounds, which are very new at the time, and smash it into a 3 to 4 minute single. That's what helped them capture the attention of audiences around the world. And the other thing that made them really globally popular is they were one of these bands that I would put into the category of cosmopolitan rather than a sound that you can pinpoint to a particular region. Leonard Skinner, for instance, Southern rock. In fact, they sing about one of the places, not where they're from, but very close to where they're from. They're from the panhandle of Florida, Jacksonville, but they sing about Alabama. Lots of jokes about if the panhandle is kind of Alabamian culture or not. But the point is, that's a band that's very regionally identifiable. The Kinks, we talked about them before, quintessentially England, and you could even say quintessentially Southern England in the perspectives that they bring through their lyrics. The Beach Boys, quintessentially California, and beyond that, quintessentially Southern California. And the list could go on. But with Depeche Mode, they're one of these bands that could be from anywhere at any time. And they really ran with that image. And that's why they're just as popular in Portugal as they are in Chile, as they are in Finland. They really are as they are in the United States. They're a band that truly had stunningly big international success. And they did so in a genre that up until that point wasn't able to conquer stadiums. It was still that synth pop music was still considered a kind of club-based music that would have trouble filling out a huge arena or a stadium the way that a Journey or a Pink Floyd or an REO Speedwagon could and still do. So again, they defied that perception there and took synth pop, electronic rock, call it what you will, to football stadiums throughout the world. And they continue to be able to do that. Obviously, when Andy Fletcher died in 2022, it was a big blow to the band because all of the founders were really intrinsic in creating this unique sound and this unique atmosphere that's been embraced by fans globally. So we take this opportunity of Andy Fletcher's birthday to celebrate the music. May he rest in peace. And of course, the music lives on. Like, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Take care.